I and my wife have been married for 10 years, and I'm starting to think our relationship has deteriorated due to her excuses. Not sure if I'm overreacting here, but I think there's a serious pattern of deflection that's putting our future at risk. Some background. My wife used to be an art teacher until about 7 years ago. She lost her job after an incident where she was accused of misappropriating art supplies from the school where she taught. She developed anxiety and depression after that incident, which I completely understood and supported her through. We agreed that she'd handle the household responsibilities while pursuing her personal art career, and I was 100% behind her following her passion. For context, I'm a construction project manager who served in the military, and I deal with PTSD from my service time. I manage it with consistent therapy and medication, and I've never used it as an excuse to shirk my responsibilities. I show up for work every day, manage my teams, and make sure our income stays steady. I mention this because it's becoming a point of contention in our arguments. We own our home with decent equity, but we're cash poor because of my wife's increasing spending on art supplies and what she calls potential opportunities that never seem to materialize. We're actually falling behind on property taxes. Adding to the financial strain, we have a rescue dog with chronic health issues who needs expensive medication. I've been working overtime to afford these meds because I love him, and he shouldn't suffer because of our problems. The vet bills alone have added about $3,000 to our credit card debt over the past year. Yesterday was the breaking point. I came home after a 12-hour workday to find our living room set up as an art studio. There were expensive new materials scattered everywhere: clay, tools, glazes. The kitchen was unusable with dishes piled high and more art supplies covering every surface. Meanwhile, her personal art space in the spare room was organized. I asked about dinner, or at least being able to use the kitchen to make something myself, and she excitedly pulled me over to show me a $2,000 kiln she'd just purchased. Apparently, she's now starting ceramic art after abandoning her previous painting, jewelry making, and textile projects. I tried to stay calm and pointed out that we cannot afford this when we're already behind on property taxes. I explained again how financial instability particularly triggers my PTSD symptoms. Her response was tears. She said this project would finally be the one to launch her art career and that I was crushing her dreams. When I asked how she paid for the kiln, I discovered it was on a new credit card I didn't even know existed. This adds to our mounting debt that's already approaching $15,000. When I brought this up, she deflected by saying her therapist encourages her creative expression as essential to her mental health. She accused me of not supporting her recovery, which honestly felt insulting, considering how much I've bent over backward to accommodate her journey. The argument escalated when I pointed out that I'm managing my PTSD through proper treatment and accountability while maintaining my job, yet her mental health seems to justify increasingly destructive financial decisions. This didn't go over well. We've been here before. 6 months ago, we separated briefly after a similar argument about her spending. During our separation, she temporarily improved her household contributions and financial responsibility. But as soon as I moved back home, she quickly reverted to her old patterns. Last year, she spent nearly $4,000 on a professional loom and specialty yarns. The loom was used exactly twice before she decided textiles were no longer for her. The year before that, it was jewelry making, with about $30,500 in precious metals, stones, and tools that now sit in our basement. Each time I expressed concern about the cost, it turned into accusations that I was stifling her creativity. What's increasingly frustrating is how she applies different standards to her responsibilities versus mine. If I'm even 5 minutes late coming home because of work, she'll make comments about my priorities. But she'll leave household chores undone for days because she was busy with her art projects and couldn't interrupt to do laundry or cook dinner. Our dog's medication situation is telling. He needs pills twice daily for his heart condition. When I'm home, I make sure he gets them without fail, even during my PTSD episodes. When it's her responsibility, she forgets about half the time, but gets defensive if I point this out. Yesterday, I noticed his pill container was still full from the morning dose when I got home at 7 p.m. When I mentioned it, she said she was too absorbed in researching kiln techniques to remember. I'm seriously contemplating divorce at this point, but I worry about being judged for leaving someone with mental illness. She's already portrayed me on social media as an unsupportive husband who doesn't value her artistic passion. Her friends have started sending me messages about how I need to support her journey. I've tried everything I can think of. I set up a budget spreadsheet that she ignored after 2 days. I suggested she sell some of her finished pieces online to offset costs. She claimed that would commercialize her art. I even found an art business workshop specifically designed to help artists turn their passion into income and offered to pay for it. She attended one session before deciding the instructor was too focused on profit instead of passion. The truth is, I feel trapped in a relationship where my own mental health struggles must be carefully managed and never used as excuses, while hers seem to justify increasingly destructive behavior. I'm afraid that any criticism of her spending will trigger another accusation that I'm sabotaging her dreams. Last night, I slept in my car just to get some peace. I've worked so hard to manage my PTSD through therapy and medication, but the constant financial stress is making my symptoms worse. I've had 3 panic attacks in the past month after opening credit card bills or property tax notices. What makes this all harder is that I do love her, and I remember the person she was before this pattern developed. She used to be passionate, but also practical, creative, but also considerate. Now it feels like I'm married to someone who relies on me financially for her various artistic pursuits, with any pushback labeled as a symptom of my PTSD making me controlling. I'm at a loss. Our home is being filled with half-finished projects and mounting debt. My attempts to address our financial reality are dismissed as unsupportive, and my own mental health is deteriorating under the constant stress. My anxiety is very high just thinking about what to do next. What would you do in my position? Now for the first update. My wife's art career is destroying our finances, and I think I'm at my breaking point. Wow, I did not expect my last post to blow up. First off, thank you to everyone who took the time to offer advice and share similar experiences. It's both comforting and heartbreaking to know I'm not alone in this situation. So it's been about 2 weeks since my original post, and things have gotten more complicated. After our argument about the kiln, I decided to review our finances while my wife was at an artist networking event. What I found was shocking. There were 3 additional credit cards I didn't know about, all maxed out at around $3,000 each. All art supplies, workshop fees, and booth rentals for local craft fairs I didn't even know she was participating in. I spent hours going through bank statements and credit card bills and put everything into a spreadsheet. We're now over $24,000 in debt from her art pursuits alone. And according to the records, she sold exactly 3 pieces in the last year for a grand total of $175. Meanwhile, she's been posting on her art Instagram about building her thriving creative business and the journey of a professional artist. Her account has like 230 followers, mostly other struggling artists or family members. Our poor dog's heart condition has gotten worse too. The vet called yesterday asking why we missed his checkup appointment. Apparently my wife was supposed to take him while I was at work, but forgot because she was testing glaze combinations for her new pottery pieces. The vet warned us that inconsistent medication could be making his condition deteriorate faster. I've been so focused on our financial mess that I didn't notice he wasn't getting his afternoon doses when I wasn't home. My company offered me a promotion last week. They want me to oversee a major renovation project at the local art center, the same place my wife has been trying to get her work displayed for years. The pay increase would be significant, about 20% more, but it would mean longer hours and more stress, at least for the duration of the project. I've been working with my therapist on strategies to manage my PTSD triggers, especially around financial insecurity. She suggested I have a calm, factual conversation with my wife about our situation without accusation. So I gathered all the documentation, took a day off work while my wife was home, and laid everything out on the dining room table. After clearing away her polymer clay experiments, I showed her how we're 3 months behind on property taxes. I explained that if we don't address this immediately, we could literally lose our home. I suggested we sell some of the unused art equipment in our garage, specifically the $3,000 printing press she bought last year and used exactly twice before deciding printmaking wasn't her medium. Her response was predictable at this point. Those aren't just things, they're investments in my future, and you're trying to sabotage me. And my personal favorite, My therapist says you're exhibiting controlling behaviors by monitoring my spending. When I mentioned the promotion opportunity at the art center, her entire demeanor changed. Suddenly, she was excited, asking if I could help her with the exhibition committee. I explained that my role would be strictly construction management and wouldn't involve any artistic decisions. She didn't seem to hear that part at all. Then she announced that she's invited her friend, another unemployed artist, to stay in our spare room for a few months to collaborate on projects. The same friend who once loudly proclaimed at a dinner party that veterans with PTSD are basically all ticking time bombs, while I was sitting right there. When I asked why she hadn't discussed this with me first, she accused me of being controlling and said her therapist agrees she needs a supportive, creative community around her. That's when I realized she views our home and finances as resources for her artistic pursuits rather than our shared responsibility. 10 years of marriage, and I'm just now seeing this pattern clearly. I made the decision that night to consult with a divorce attorney, already have an appointment for next week. While also accepting the promotion, I know some of you will think I'm cruel for considering leaving someone with mental health issues, but after a decade of this pattern, impulsive decisions followed by using her anxiety and depression as shields from consequences, I'm emotionally and financially drained. Some commenters asked about couples therapy. We tried it 3 times over the years. She always quits after 2 to 3 sessions when the therapist suggests she might need to compromise. Others asked if she might have undiagnosed ADHD with the pattern of hyperfixation on new hobbies. Honestly, I've wondered this too, but suggesting any additional diagnosis upsets her because she feels I'm pathologizing her creativity. My PTSD triggers have worsened with all this financial stress. I've had 4 panic attacks in the past 2 weeks alone. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm working overtime to afford her art supplies, while also paying for therapy to manage the anxiety her spending causes me. I'm still sleeping in the spare room, soon to be occupied by her artist friend, apparently. Last night, I overheard her on the phone describing me as unsupportive and just not understanding the artistic process to someone. Meanwhile, I was literally researching second jobs I could work on weekends to keep us from losing our house. Edit. A lot of you asked about her family and whether they could help. Her parents are retired teachers living on fixed incomes, and they've already lent us money twice, which I thought went to car repairs, but now I'm questioning everything. Her sister is actually the one who sent me the link to her art Instagram, where she's portraying herself as a successful artist, which is how I discovered that particular misrepresentation. I know this update isn't the I took action and everything is fixed story some of you hoped for. The reality is messier. I'm managing things by accepting the promotion, consulting an attorney, and trying to figure out how to protect whatever assets we have left, while also making sure our dog gets proper care. The hardest part is that I still love the person I married. I just don't recognize who she's become, and I can't continue to sacrifice my well-being to support her artistic dreams. I keep wondering if I enabled this by being too supportive for too long. Thanks again for all your comments and DMs. They've helped me realize I'm not crazy for feeling like this situation has become untenable. I'll update again after I meet with the lawyer and figure out next steps. For now, I'm focusing on my mental health and making sure our dog gets his medication consistently. Now for the second update. Update number 2. My wife's art career and our crumbling finances. Things have gotten worse. Well, I'm back again with another update, thanks to those who reached out after my last post got locked. No idea why that happened. For those who missed it, I've been dealing with my wife's increasingly expensive art career that's putting us in serious debt while I try to manage my PTSD and our sick dog. Link to original post and first update for those who need to catch up. It's been about 10 days since my last update. I did meet with the divorce attorney as planned. Thanks for all the recommendations. I went with someone who specializes in high-conflict divorces. The consultation was sobering. Despite the financial misconduct and hidden debt, I'd likely still be on the hook for significant alimony given our 10-year marriage and her unemployment. Apparently, courts don't typically view, but she spent all our money on abandoned art projects as grounds for reduced spousal support. Great. I accepted the promotion at the art center, which comes with about a 20% pay increase. Honestly, it couldn't have come at a better time given our financial situation. Property tax deadline is looming and we're still behind. My first meeting with the director revealed something unexpected. She actually worked at the same school where my wife taught art all those years ago. Small world, right? She was tight-lipped when I mentioned my wife's name regarding that misappropriation incident that supposedly wasn't my wife's fault. Our poor dog's condition has gotten significantly worse. I took him to the vet yesterday for his checkup, the one my wife missed, and they confirmed what I feared. His medication hasn't been given consistently, which has accelerated his heart condition. The vet looked at me with disappointment when she explained this, and I couldn't even defend myself because, I should have been checking more carefully. The medication costs almost $200 a month, and she's just not giving it to him. It's literally a once-daily pill that goes in his food. Remember that artist friend my wife invited to stay with us without asking me first? Well, she moved in 3 days ago with way more stuff than someone staying temporarily should have. She's exactly as I remembered, condescending, loud, and completely oblivious to our financial situation. She keeps encouraging my wife to invest in essential equipment and dismisses any mention of budgets or financial reality as limiting creative expression. I've overheard them planning trips to art supply stores. My PTSD symptoms have been increasing with all this chaos. I've had 6 panic attacks in the past week alone, more than I've had in the previous year combined. My therapist squeezed me in for an emergency session after I called her having a breakdown in my car outside work. She reminded me that I've worked really hard to manage my condition through proper treatment and that I deserve an environment that doesn't constantly trigger episodes. That hit hard. Yesterday was the breaking point. I came home from a 10-hour day at the new job to find my wife and her friend had decided to convert our spare bathroom into a dark room for film photography. Apparently, ceramics is out and photography is in. They had partially demolished one wall, disconnected the sink, and were in the process of setting up some kind of chemical station. The bathroom was in disarray with drywall dust and exposed pipes. They were using chemicals, and they were playing music when I came in. When I finally got their attention and asked what was going on, my wife acted like this was the most normal thing in the world. We're creating a professional darkroom space. Isn't it exciting? You're always saying I need to focus on one medium, so I'm all in on film photography now. I tried to stay calm while explaining that you can't just demolish parts of a house without permits, especially when it involves plumbing. The friend rolled her eyes and said, "This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior your wife told me about. Are you really going to use your PTSD as an excuse to stifle her artistic growth? I've never wanted to throw someone out of my house more in my entire life." I took a moment, used the grounding techniques my therapist taught me, and calmly asked about permits. My wife waved dismissively and said she researched it online, and her friend installed a sink in her art studio once, so they knew what they were doing. The exposed copper pipes and water pooling on the floor suggested otherwise. During this whole argument, I noticed our dog was hiding under the dining table. I went to check on him and give him his medication, only to discover the bottle in the fridge was still at the same level as 3 days ago when I last gave him his dose. When I confronted my wife about this, she said the medication schedule was too complicated with all her art projects going on. This is the same woman who can follow a 16-step film development process. But somehow, putting one pill in a dog's food bowl once a day is too complicated. I suggested that maybe we should consider rehoming our dog with my sister, who has offered multiple times to take him, since his care is clearly not a priority here. My wife completely melted down, sobbing about how I was trying to take away her emotional support animal, the same animal she apparently can't be bothered to keep alive with basic medication. That's when this became clear to me. This isn't just about art or spending or even mental health. It's about priorities and responsibility. My wife prioritizes her artistic pursuits over literally everything: our financial security, our home's structural integrity, the life of our pet, and my mental well-being. I called my sister that night and arranged for our dog to stay with her temporarily. My wife was at some photography networking event, so I packed his medication, food, bed, and toys and dropped him off. The relief I felt seeing him settled in a calm, stable environment was overwhelming. I documented everything about the unauthorized bathroom renovations, took plenty of photos and videos, and sent them to my lawyer. She suggested accelerating our divorce timeline given the ongoing property damage. I also contacted a contractor friend to assess the damage. He estimates several $1,000s to repair what they've done in just one day. Money we absolutely don't have. After a particularly bad night sleeping on the couch, I made a decision. I found a small studio apartment near my new workplace and signed a month-to-month lease. It's tiny and basically unfurnished, but the first night I spent there was the best sleep I've had in months. Just peace and quiet in a space that's organized exactly how I need it to be. I'm still paying all the bills for our house, including the mortgage, while living elsewhere. My lawyer advised me not to move assets or change financial arrangements until we file official papers. But just having a safe space to decompress has improved my PTSD symptoms dramatically. My therapist is thrilled with the progress. I know some of you will think I'm abandoning my wife during a mental health crisis. Her sister has already sent some choice text messages suggesting exactly that. But after years of supporting her through various diagnoses while carefully managing my own condition, I've realized that some situations aren't fixable with more patience or understanding. I'm meeting with my lawyer again tomorrow to file initial divorce papers, and I've already warned my new boss that there might be some personal drama in the coming weeks. Thankfully, she was understanding and assured me that as long as my work remains solid, my personal life is my business. I'm still not sure if I'm making the right decisions about everything, but your comments and support have helped me recognize that protecting my own mental health isn't selfish. It's necessary. I'll update again when there are significant developments, hoping the bathroom situation doesn't turn into an actual flood in the meantime. Now for the final update. The art career saga has reached its conclusion. First of all, thank you to everyone who followed along and offered support through this nightmare. Your advice literally saved my sanity and probably thousands of dollars. It's been 3 weeks since I moved into my studio apartment, and the difference in my mental health has been nothing short of remarkable. The promotion at the art center has been going incredibly well. My supervisor actually pulled me aside yesterday to compliment my organizational skills and attention to detail. The director has been especially supportive, often checking in to make sure the workload isn't triggering my symptoms. My sister sends daily updates about our dog, who is doing significantly better now that he is getting his medication consistently. His energy levels have improved, and the vet says his heart condition has stabilized as much as can be expected for his age. She has officially adopted him now, and seeing him prosper in a stable environment has been one of the few positive aspects in this situation. The bathroom renovation problems got worse after I moved out. My wife called because water was leaking through the ceiling below the bathroom. My contractor buddy went over to assess the damage, approximately $7,000 to fix everything properly, including water damage to the ceiling and walls downstairs. My lawyer advised me to document everything, but still pay for the repairs to prevent further damage to a house I am still legally responsible for. While this plumbing issue was unfolding, I discovered through mutual friends that my wife had been telling anyone who would listen that I abandoned her and our dying dog during a mental health crisis. According to her sister, my wife claimed my PTSD made me unstable and controlling around her art, and that I couldn't handle her creative success. Her art friends even started a GoFundMe for her as a survivor of relationship trauma, complete with carefully edited text exchanges that omitted her responses. My lawyer suggested scheduling a meeting with my wife to discuss divorce terms and the property damage situation. Since my wife refused to speak by phone unless her creative support person was present, we agreed to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown that I knew had good lighting and security cameras. When I arrived, I found my wife sitting with 2 friends, both with phones already recording. Before I could even sit down, my wife announced she was starting a documentary series about artists surviving relationships with veterans with PTSD, and wanted to include our conversation as part of it. This will really highlight the challenges creative people face in relationships with traumatized partners, she said, gesturing for me to sit while her friends continued filming. I remained standing and calmly stated I didn't consent to being recorded, asking her friends to give us privacy for what should be a personal conversation. The bathroom renovation expert scoffed and said something about public spaces and artistic expression, But I just stood there silently. Those grounding techniques from therapy really do work, even when you feel very upset. After an awkward minute of me refusing to engage while being filmed, I placed 3 folders on the table: documentation of the water damage from the improper renovations, the vet records showing the missed medication schedule for our dog, and financial statements showing our dire situation and hidden credit cards. I'm not here to be part of a documentary. I'm here to discuss our divorce and the damage to our home, I said, keeping my voice level. These are copies of everything my lawyer has. I'm happy to discuss them privately. One of the friends picked up the vet records and water damage photos, looking increasingly uncomfortable as she flipped through them. She glanced between my wife and the documents, clearly processing that what she was seeing didn't match whatever story she'd been told. Maybe we should stop filming and give them some privacy to talk, she suggested, lowering her phone. My wife's face went through about 5 different expressions in 3 seconds flat. She glared at her friend and actually said, "Are you seriously betraying artistic solidarity right now?" Not a question, an accusation. The friend looked shocked, and for good reason. It was one of those moments where someone accidentally shows you exactly who they are. At that exact moment, the art center director walked into the cafe. She recognized me immediately and came over to say hello, completely unaware of the situation she was walking into. When I introduced her to my wife, the director's expression changed, just slightly, but noticeably. "Oh, we've actually met before," she said. My wife suddenly became very interested in her coffee cup and mumbled something about needing to use the restroom before leaving the table. The director turned to me and mentioned she was impressed with how I managed my PTSD while maintaining professional excellence on the Arts Center project. She said this loudly enough that both friends heard, directly contradicting my wife's narrative about me being unstable. As she walked away, she added, "Your team respects you. That says a lot about a person's character." When my wife returned from her bathroom break, her friends were packing up to leave. The documentary idea had apparently lost its appeal once faced with actual evidence and an unplanned character witness. The bathroom renovation expert still looked defiant, but the other friend couldn't make eye contact with either of us. Once we were alone, my wife's demeanor changed. The act disappeared, replaced by someone who looked tired and small. For the first time in years, we actually had an honest conversation. She admitted to using her art and mental health as shields from adult responsibility. She acknowledged creating a narrative about me that wasn't true because it was easier than facing her own failures. "I didn't think anyone would believe your side anyway because of your PTSD," she said with surprising candor. That statement told me everything I needed to know about why this marriage needed to end. We talked through divorce terms more reasonably than I expected. She agreed to take responsibility for the property damage she caused, while I agreed to help her establish a realistic budget for her art pursuits going forward. We're not friends, but we're not enemies either. The divorce is moving forward amicably. I'm staying in my apartment while we sell the house. My new job continues to be a positive environment where I can actually use my organizational skills instead of constantly dealing with issues at home. Edit. Many people have asked about the artist friend who was staying with my wife. Apparently, she moved out the day after the coffee shop incident, taking most of her belongings, but leaving behind hundreds of dollars in art supplies. My wife texted me that she's rethinking some friendships and has started looking into actual art business classes at the community college. I genuinely hope she finds a healthier path forward. To everyone who told me to document everything, you were absolutely right. And to those who said my mental health needed to be the priority, thank you for that permission. Sometimes you need strangers on the internet to state the obvious before you can accept it yourself. I wouldn't wish this experience with financial deception and mental health weaponization on anyone, but I'm definitely stronger for having gone through it. Sometimes the most caring thing you can do for yourself and others is to stop enabling destructive patterns.